We did good. It's the end of the day. You know, we're kind of in that lull after having a really long day. We do appreciate you coming to hear about our expanded FinOps journey as we have headed into the SaaS, among many other spaces outside of FinOps. My name is Becky Canterbury. I am the Senior Manager of Business Operations and Cloud FinOps at Shutterstock. Both Bill and I are located outside of Denver, Colorado. So altitude, definitely sea level. Lots of oxygen down here. I've been working in the FinOps space for, 14, 15 years now, before it was even FinOps. And at the time, I was doing multiple different roles. So I was a project manager, I was a software development manager, all while managing the cloud spend at the same time. I also am a huge proponent of paying it forward. Education, I think, is incredibly important, especially in this space. I am a FinOps mentor. I am also a mentor at Shutterstock. I provide project management and leadership training at Shutterstock as well, all of which are very good skills when it comes to doing FinOps. Nothing like collaboration and influence. Sound familiar for what we do? Bill.
And I'm Bill Jorgensen. I'm a senior cloud architect at Shutterstock, and I got my start in IT in data center, essentially being a team lead over systems, storage, and backup administrators. And I had the good fortune of being able to step into cloud providers, predominantly AWS, for about the last 11 years or so. And in each of those roles, I was the only FinOps person, but I still had to do my day job with all my engineering in terms of infrastructure and things like that. That's before, like Becky was saying, before I even knew what FinOps was. And this role here at Shutterstock is the first one that's just been dedicated to FinOps and governance.
Excellent. All right. Watch, it goes like, it doesn't work.
Next. There we go.
Technical difficulties.
Money.
Love it.
Go.
So before we begin, a little bit about Shutterstock. So Shutterstock drives creativity. Consider us a gold mine of creative assets. We have millions of images, videos, music, 3D assets, templates, editorial, where you can get pictures from news events to sports to red carpet and everything in between. Add in Giphy's GIFs. Thank you for everyone who uses GIFs. We appreciate it. And then Envato's design templates, and you have everything you need to create really great content. Now, where our company is all about creativity, behind the scenes, we are all about optimization. Now, as you heard this morning, SaaS, right? People are expanding into this in the FinOps space, as well as many other scopes. And in our world, and right here, we started our journey into this in our monitoring platform. So just a little context. I am in a very unique position. I manage both our cloud cost, but also our infrastructure and security budget. So this puts me right in between operations and finance. So I know what's happening in both sides. My finance partner and I, which is sitting right here, is an integral part of our everyday conversation, where I don't just meet with her monthly, we meet weekly, we meet when we need to, so we're constantly aligned. And that has helped, because I take that same feedback and bring it back into the engineering and operations space. All right, next. So let's talk a little bit about our story. I was approached by leadership last April about increased costs on our monitoring platform. And we needed to get them under control because we were on target to well exceed our budget. And part of this also implicates, your contract. When are we going to have to renew our contract? I was asked, hey, would the FinOps team be willing to take this on? So of course I said yes.
Of course, yes.
had to do that.
Yes, of course.
And so as part of this, we took the FinOps principles and what we have been doing and applied it here to our SaaS space within the monitoring. So how many of you have one of your biggest costs in your budget is your cloud spend. Right? For us, it's absolutely. So you're watching it like a hawk. There's collaboration, there's visibility, you have financial and operational accountability. And throughout all of it, you have to have follow-up to continue to make sure you're making progress. These aren't nice to haves, as we know. These are absolutely essential to make sure that we're making progress. Now, that's exactly how I approach this. Collaboration was first off. There's no way we can do this alone. We needed help. So I was able to pull together a rock star team of principal cloud architects, principal cloud engineers, and a project manager who really also made a huge difference. Among, of course, us, can't forget ourselves in this team. And with that, everyone was willing to roll up their sleeves and get work done. We had multiple priorities, right? Competing priorities. But this was a big one. We needed to tackle this one as a team. Now, while the engineers and everyone went and dived down into the data to get really more information, I started looking much higher up. I took a look at the last 6 months of spend and started doing some analysis. I wanted to see if I could see where costs were being driven. And what I saw was consistently, gigabyte usage was continuing to increase, and we had a surprising number of inactive users, which I'll talk about here in a minute. With that, the team was able to validate my findings. We all agreed. They continued to find and talk about reporting and work on this with the engineers, while I worked on a forecast. So I made the forecast. Out of a 6-month average, I forecasted to the end of the year. We needed to know that. We needed to know our visibility right now. Where were we? Because without that initial baseline, we had no idea. So between the forecast, what the team was doing to find that basic information, we had at least a starting point. Now at this point, it was time to bring in finance and procurement. They needed to be aware well ahead that we were looking at, if we did nothing, this was going to be the budget impact, this was going to be the impact of procurement, I was going to need their help. I am a firm believer of, if you can be proactive, be proactive. I am not a fan of surprises or reactive, which often is our life. So any place I can do it ahead, I will. So that was really a great step to get them involved. They appreciated it, and I kept them in the loop the entire time. Now let's talk about the really fun stuff, and that's the data.
Well, you just heard Becky explain kind of how we got started in this whole thing, assembling the team, invoicing vendors, procurement, all that sort of thing. But in the discussions with the project team, we realized we had no data. And I'm sure you guys share the same value that we really believe, we want to keep things simple, the KISS principle, and data-driven. So we needed the data. And as it turned out, the principal engineer on the project happened to be the SME on the monitoring platform. So he took the time to write a simple script to extract the usage data from the platform and put it into a Google Sheet. Now we have the data, which is great. And then Becky mentioned, we need some kind of baseline. So discussions ensued. We said, okay, let's look at 7 days of tracing data and 30 days of log data. So that was our baseline. So we get our baseline, we'll take a look at it. Now as a team, we have the opportunity to look and say, look at the contributors and all the things we need to do and begin that process of prioritizing our work. And I don't know about you guys, but if you take a CSV file and you import it into a Google Sheet, the data's there, right? But it's black and white. And we've just found that if you can make that data more engaging visibly, then it tends to, engagement is increased or improved. So the data sheet was essentially turned into a heat map. We have an example of that on the screen. And you notice it's color-coded, standard stuff, red, green, amber. Red is bad, green is good, and amber is everything in between. All right, so we have the data, we have it in a represented the way we want to, and the data is granular. It's on a team level. So, and the nice thing about Google Sheets then is that you can share it any way you want to. So now we can get this data as close to the engineers as we can, so they can see their contributions to the cost curve. And with the heat map, this is the first time they've ever seen this. And it had an immediate effect for us. And engagement was greatly improved. Well, from there, we said, well, we need some goals because the goal is to reduce our spend here. And so we looked, and the goals were commensurate to your usage on the platform. So if you're a small user, it's just your business as usual, you just got to keep going and do what you need to do. But if you're a big user, you're sending lots of data to the platform, we're going to talk to you. And we did. And part of the thing, for the engineers in this room, we're asking some of these teams to reduce their log usage by 70%, which as an engineer, that isn't necessarily an easy task. So you have to iterate through that. So the point to the goals is they were clear and achievable. We wanted to make sure they understood what log streams or anything they were working with, but also we wanted it achievable so they could see their success. We could too, and that together we can celebrate that progress in terms of reducing costs. Then there's a key component of this that really helped with our success.
So one thing that often gets overlooked through all this is follow-up. I don't care how nice your dashboards are, your reports, how beautiful, how far and wide you share them, but unless you follow up, all they are is snapshots in time. Follow-up is what moves the needle. Our project manager was absolutely instrumental in this and helping us out. So he created a bi-weekly core team meeting to make sure that our priority remained on this. We talked about what we were currently working on and what the teams were working on, what was planned. We celebrated every success because it mattered. The small things move the needle just as much as the big ones. And then we addressed any issues, risks, or blockers. We didn't have time to get stuck for a few weeks. We needed to make sure we were on top of those things. So we were meeting and discussing those things. So that's nice. That's with the core team. We still needed to make sure the engineers were held accountable. So we created Jira tickets that had all the information, why we were doing this and asking them to do it, what they needed to do, because some teams had really big targets. Reduced by 70% is no joke. And then also part of that ownership, gotta have an owner and a due date. Now, with a lot of tickets for those engineers, sometimes they go in the backlog, right? Never to be seen from again. Goodbye. In this case, we followed up religiously. Not just the project manager, but all of us. We all took that on to make sure we are reaching out to the teams. Do they have any questions? Are there any problems? Remind them of the priority of this and that the impact that they're going to make. And we were able to see incredible progress. We took something that was very visible, reporting, and made it into actionable with incredible outcomes. Now, with everything, we always need to improve.
Yes, we do.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I'm sure you guys go through this. You're always looking at your processes, trying to understand how you can improve them, how can you streamline them, how, in other words, this is kind of this continual improvement. And so as effective as that heat map was with the engineering teams, with engagement and things like that, there were some limitations that we were contending with. And first of all, was the data representation. While the data was in the sheet and it was shared out, you still had to locate it on your row as an engineering team and follow it across. And you can get lost on a Google sheet, and I do at least. And so data representation was an issue. And then the other thing related to this is all the processes for intervention was manual. And we didn't have any automation in this space. Well, we discussed it amongst ourselves, and our cost reporting vendor said, oh, we can help. And we went, okay. So we engaged the reporting vendor with our reporting tool. And the first pass with this was a fail. We knew within a day when the data came in and we looked at it, it was too high level and we couldn't use it. But our principal engineer on the project team worked with the vendor for about 2 months off and on, showing them the queries he was running to get that granular team level data. And they came back about 2 months later and they said, hey, we think we have something. What do you think? And we have a representation of that on the screen. So this would be a screen that Becky and I would look at, and it looks like we need to go after Big Blue there. But anyway, what it does is it breaks it down into individual teams. So with the reporting tool, now we can build a view specific to the team and get it as close to them as possible, and they don't have to be searching for it or looking for it. So it's kind of like reducing that barrier to entry for their data, right? Well, that's a big win. But the other thing, going back to the heat map, is we use the heat map to validate the data that the reporting tool was displaying for us. And as I took the time to validate the data, it was spot on. So now we have what I would refer to as good data. And good data for me is you validated it as accurate so that you have confidence in it. Well, we now have confidence in the reporting tool data for this platform, and we can communicate that out to engineering and frankly anybody else. And so the other thing that this does is since we validated the data, this freed up the principal engineer from validating the heat map every day. While the process was automatic or automated, he needed to validate it. So it frees the principal engineer to go pursue other tasks related to the project that we really needed to get done. So that was a big win for us. The other thing on notifications is the reporting tool provides us a regular, when you create the view, and this was what we started this out in our cloud spend area, is that you can send, the view, sends a notification, a weekly summary, and a cost anomaly alert. The nice thing about it is it doesn't use email. And I don't know about you guys, but email, my assessment of that is there's a filter in everybody's inbox and it goes to the bit bucket and no one looks at it, right? So the thing that's nice about this is we have Slack integration and it goes right to the team's Slack channel. So now we're getting, not only are we getting the data closer to them, we get the notifications closer to them, right? Reducing that barrier of entry. The other thing that's really nice is that the engineering team uses a development experience platform that has a homepage for them. We can take that individual view for that team and put it in that homepage. And now they're one click away from their data, right? We don't have to be searching for it. We don't have to be hunting for it. It's just one click away. That was a huge win for us. And in terms of those notifications, in terms of early wins, we hadn't had this, the monitoring platform in the tool, the reporting tool, for more than about a month when a cost anomaly alert was sent to a specific team's Slack channel. And the software development manager, we refer to them as an SDM, reached out to the FinOps team and said, hey, I got this notification. I don't know what's going on. Can you help me? And I said, well, sure. Let's dig in and see what's going on. So we took the time to dig into that data and found out they had a misconfiguration in a lower environment. That misconfiguration was causing their daily spend to increase by over 4 times. Now, the nice thing about that from our standpoint is we were able to get in front of that or find it out within 2 days. Where with our heat map, it would have taken us weeks, maybe even to the next month, and then our budget is blown, right? We're in trouble. So that was a big win. Now, the other thing that I neglected to tell you, and this is unexpected for us, is the way that data was injected into that tool, we got all of the monitoring platform's accounts into the tool. So we could see the cost from all the accounts. And I mentioned to you that this was a misconfiguration in a lower environment. What I neglected to tell you is when the principal engineer was using that heat map, that was production only. Now, we see all the environments. We picked up on that anomaly in a development environment, which helped us out. With this, too, by getting the data closer to the engineers, and you've heard it multiple times today, even in the keynote, is we notice that once those engineers see their impact to that cost curve, they will optimize for it. And so then we get that shift of FinOps to the left, which is really what we needed.
Awesome. So as Bill was talking, our engineers have all this great information now, but I still needed to make sure I was reporting up to leadership, finance, and procurement. Now in our cloud space, I keep a reconciliation sheet, really fancy Google sheet, not really, but I have used this for years. It tracks our actuals, our forecasts that I do every week. I make sure that any increases are noted on there as well as decreases, so I can tell the story, because the story is very important when you're talking to both leadership and finance. And instead of reinventing the wheel, I just made a copy of it, ripped out what I didn't need, and within an hour, I had my forecast and what I needed to report on our monitoring platform. Really simple. And this is shared with leadership as well as finance and procurement. Any of the green numbers, that just means they're actuals. Red is forecast. I don't want anybody looking and making decisions based necessarily on a forecast that say, hey, this is where your budget's going to be. It's a trend, and as we got closer to the end of the year, we had a much better idea. But I wanted to make sure they realized that. And then, of course, the actuals. Now, as part of the core team, we set a baseline. This is where we needed to have our ingestion be, our usage, below this line, not just now, but into the future. So again, color coding. Anything in the cell was red, it's over. Green, it's under. Really quick. You don't even have to really understand what all this is showing you, but if you know the colors, red is always bad, green is good. Now, as you can tell, we started this in April. Oh, that was scary. But we made huge improvements in 1 month. Now, the fact that it's still over baseline, give us a break. It's 1 month in. We were celebrating every win, because if you look, and this is just representative data, we had a massive decrease in use in 1 month because of the visibility and the follow-up that we were doing. We had a couple hiccups. Bill mentioned those, but they could have been so much worse. Instead of going over months and us searching for them, we found them immediately, so the impacts were lower, and that I was seeing at my higher level reporting. I was talking to leadership about these numbers on a monthly basis, and if asked, I would give them at any given time, because this was always updated. I was reforecasting every week. Of course I can give them where we're heading at this time. Incredibly impactful between these two tools to really make that difference. Now, just like with what Bill did with engineering, I also improved my reporting. Now, don't get me wrong, I still have that spreadsheet. I probably will forever because it's easy. But now I am creating, based off the data off our reporting tool, a monthly cost metric deck that includes our cloud spend and our monitoring spend. And if we add any other tools, any other SaaS providers to all of this, AI is about ready to join this slide deck.
Yep.
And what this provides is a very quick glimpse of where we're at. If someone doesn't read anything but this key takeaway slide, they have all the information they need. Now, this slide deck is being shared literally from the CEO down to the engineers. I take a screen capture of just the key takeaways, and I make sure that's included in Slack and email. So even if the email, they open it, they can see this information. So in this case, you can see where our total invoices for the company. How are we trending? But also by division. And you can see I track month to month where your increase or decrease is. Of course, red, people react on red. And then, of course, green. I also track year to date. This has created so many great conversations with division heads, with leadership. They want to know why the costs are going up. They also want to know why they're going down, what we're doing, because that's celebration. They also are starting to let us know even more now what they have planned coming. So again, I'm all about being proactive. This has helped that proactive. They've let us know now more and more when things are coming. This goes out on a monthly basis, and it is pretty straightforward for me to put together. It doesn't take too long, but the impact has been huge. Now, I mentioned earlier when I was looking at gigabytes, and that's what Bill was showing, and my costs were all around costs. Licensing, big deal. So as I was diving into the data, I found a shocking number of inactive users who had not accessed the system in months or even years, and we're paying for every single one of those. Okay, need to make a change. I partnered with our IT manager and her team, and we came up and created and also implemented a license use policy. Use it or lose it. And in this case, we set that time frame to 30 days. I'm sorry, this is a monitoring platform. If you're using it, you're going to be using it. And we had talked to the core team, and they all agreed. So we put in a 30-day policy. And within the next month, we had saved a lot of money just by removing those users. And we kept it consistent. So it was something that was done every single month. So we kept those licenses down. Now, the licenses that were downgraded, the majority never asked for them to be upgraded. They weren't actually using the tool in the first place. So it was the right decision. Now, don't get me wrong. If somebody says they need to have the elevated license, we would, of course, give it to them. You know, no questions asked. Yes, you can absolutely. With the caveat of you need to still use it within 30 days or it goes back down. But just that has created this culture of making sure you're using it. Don't take a tool on just because you think you might need it. Use it because you do need it as part of your job. Now I have the whole picture. I have the cost. I have my forecast, and especially as we get, going on this project, I know where we're heading. We also have the license costs. Bring in finance and bring in procurement. Now I can start saying within these few months, we're going to need to renegotiate that contract and renew it. And this is what we're going to need for it. Was able to give them all that information. But also finance was an incredibly important conversation as well. This is now budget impacting. We know likely what that is going to be. And that gives both of us the ability to tell the story to our leadership and when we have our monthly conversations about how we're trending. Incredibly important. And that at that point, we're able to get up and run, right? We're able to deal with the issues without having them be hey, you need to negotiate this contract next week. That's not cool. So it was incredibly useful, all of this. Now, let's talk about how we continually improve.
Yes, I'm sure you guys are the same. I said this before, we really try and kind of practice continual improvement. But before I get to places where we need to grow or improve, I kind of want to step back and just, when we were discussing everything that was going on for this presentation, we thought there were some things that we felt like we learned on this. And the first thing, it's not necessarily in order of importance, but data visibility. Data tells the story. It's your story, right? And so we found that data visibility in this space was super helpful with engagement. The other thing that we try and operate under is, I've heard the saying, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. We take our small wins and build on it. If we get a win, we just build on that and iterate through and do what we can to keep going. The other thing too is we talk about, especially in this space, is we want to try and practice the KISS principle, keep it simple and data driven. So do what you can to get that data. Again, it comes back to that visibility. And then finally, and you heard that from JR today and the keynote, we've mentioned it here before, you get that FinOps shift to the left. Once engineers know what their decisions or whatever they're doing has an impact on the cost curve, they will optimize for that. So those are some things we've taken away from this. Now, in terms of areas of improvement, it's data. Right now, we have some latency on the data. It comes down to batch cycles, polling intervals, all that sort of stuff from the vendors. Not sure we can do much here. We'd like to try and get that data closer to near real time if possible, because in that story I mentioned with you, that cost anomaly alert, we're on it within a couple days. I mean, if we can compress this window in terms of near real-time data, then we can get on top of things even quicker, which is what we would like to do. The next thing, we still have plenty of manual processes, and it's not like we have a laundry list of things we want to go after. We know we're pretty manual, we need to improve that. But here's an example where we reached out to our solutions architect team, and one of the solutions architects who is here has automated our forecasting for our cloud spend. Now, this is in cloud spend. We need to be able to try and, if there's anything we can do in the SaaS space too. So that's a huge help for us, right? Is there anything we can do in this space? And then when it comes to the manual intervention part, this is kind of where we picked up some road rash too, where those automated, notifications are wonderful, right? Except when it doesn't grab the attention of a team the way you'd like for it to. And we had that situation once early in this project when we had the reporting tool up and active, where the project manager said, "Hey, Bill, have you DM'd me and said, hey, have you noticed costs are up?" I said, "Well, yeah, they are, actually. I just noticed." And he said, "I think it's this one team." And you're right again. It is this team. And then he said, "Did they get their notification?" I said, "Well, let me go check the Slack channel. Screenshot, yeah, they did." He goes, "I'm on it." So, I mean, there's parts of this where we're still beholden to manual intervention just because things just aren't, where we need it to be. But the other thing that we feel we want to do is to build a stronger or better FinOps culture in the space in SaaS, because historically engineering teams, they were users. They just sent their log data, their tracing data there for the purposes for that platform. And so that's something that we'd like to, build on. And one of the things we've done in that space to try and improve is to implement budgets. Now, the budgets here are not hard and fast. You're not in trouble if you go out of bounds, but here are your guardrails. It's based on a baseline month, again, a baseline. And just do your best to stay in here. And if you don't, we're going to come knocking and just ask, what's the story? What happened? What's going on? And then there's one other area that we'd like to implement here that actually Becky initiated in our cloud spend.
So we gamified cost savings, cost avoidance in our cloud with incredible results. We use the FinOps Champion program. You can actually find it on the FinOps website. We modified it to work for us, but it worked fabulously. It's amazing when you gamify it. And we provided just a small little token to the winner, because we had different categories. But everyone who participated, and then of course your winners, we broadcasted their information and what they contributed on our newsletter, on our all hands. We shouted it out in multiple different Slack channels. And there's a bit of a competition to see who can be number one. That call out and that visibility goes a really long way. So we want to do something very similar on some of our SaaS products. Not all of them will fit into that, but there are quite a few that will. And so I noticed on the FinOps site, there's actually a lot more ways to gamify this savings. So I'm going to look into those and see what I can modify moving forward. Now I wanted to just take a quick step back for lessons learned. In my case, I would say we started too late. We got really close to hitting our goal of being on budget and not having to renew early, but we missed it. We didn't miss it by a lot. We made up a lot of ground, but we did. Now, what I would do next time and what we've actually started doing is start much earlier. Do not wait until somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, we have a problem. Can you help?" Start asking the questions now, getting involved. It's something now that every time we have a renewal, we're starting to ask the questions about, do you need this? And also tracking. We're talking to additional people when you have usage. Are you tracking this? Can we help you? And we're starting to bring in more of that data now into our reporting tool to help drive the same behavior. We don't want to get into the same position again. So next time we're gonna start much earlier. Now this process for us has been incredibly scalable and very much repeatable. Now, up until this point, we've been focused right on the cloud. We've now moved into a monitoring platform. Well, now we're expanding even more than that. And using the FinOps principles, if you use those and you keep it simple and very much repeatable, that process, you can absolutely apply every single one of those to your SaaS products. But the key is not to overcomplicate any of it. So what we ended up doing is met with the IT manager, partnered with our IT manager and our project manager, and we started looking at all the different SaaS that we had within our space and starting to ask the owners really hard questions. So of course we showed them the data. This is the license use. This is how many licenses are in the group, and these are the people who have it. We started asking the questions. Do they really need it? What are they using it for? And more important is there another tool we currently have that they can actually use? I don't know about a lot of you, but we had found that there was a lot of tools that were very similar, almost the same, that we were using that we could migrate people onto the same and save that money. And so we were challenging the status quo. We were challenging the processes that were there. Does a new hire need this laundry list of applications, or can they wait until they need it? So we started asking those, and we had incredible results. Now, again, we did implement the use it or lose it on quite a few of those, and that time frame could have been anywhere from 30 days to a year, just depending on the usage cycle, because some groups do use it, like on a quarterly basis or even half year. And that made it an impact as well. So our timing on all of this that we were doing, we started last August. That's the beginning of our budget season. We were impacting not just between August and the end of the year. We impacted the entire next year's budget, and we shaved millions off of our budget by doing this. We just challenged the status quo, and we applied FinOps practices again and again. It was incredible. It still is. It's really nice to see how it continues to have legs.
So when it comes to repeatable and scalable, when we discussed this, we came down to 4 themes, and these aren't necessarily in order of importance. But we've certainly noticed this to be what we see as helping with repeatability and scalability, and that's first is collaboration. The way I would put it is do what you can to make FinOps a team sport. I mean, from the C-suite all the way down to the engineers. I mean, everybody. Procurement, finance, the execs, all that stuff. See what you can do to find those stakeholders and those influencers and just see what happens. The next is visibility. I've mentioned it before. That cost visibility, it is a change agent. When people see their contribution to that curve, it helps with engagement and ownership. Financial and operational accountability. This is more about trying to build that culture of FinOps in this space. And we found it doesn't matter, you just keep using that across the board. And finally, tracking and follow-up. Becky mentioned the importance of the follow-up, and tracking is there with the Jira tickets and things like that. That's made a big difference. And one thing I'd like to say about the follow-up is if you have an engineer or a team that they've made a change and it's been significant, maybe it's a large percentage of what their contribution is, I take the time to go up and follow up with them and say, thank you. You crushed it. This was a great thing. We really appreciate what you just did.
Awesome. So as we finish our story, there's a few things that I took away when we were creating this, and that is we are no different than you. We are challenged with a tight budget, increasing SaaS costs, and very limited time to do a lot of this. You can't do this alone. We collaborated with people across the company, across the organization, with great results. When you reach out and tell them what your goal is and what you're looking to do, people lean in and they will help if they can. That's just, the nature, especially if you come about it in a very friendly, nice way that you're trying to do the right thing. And last is share the knowledge. Teach the FinOps principles to others so they can carry the torch even when you're not in the room. As FinOps professionals, it is one of the things that we can enable other individuals to do is to teach them to be able to do this without us, to be able to be empowered. That is where our biggest enablement is. Final thoughts here, visibility drives action. Without that visibility, your costs that's one of the primary drivers for increased spend and often overspend. Simple tools, big impact. We used a heat map and had huge impact. We used a spreadsheet, huge impact. Don't over-engineer what you're doing to report. As you progress, you can absolutely continue to improve, which we did, but we had to start fast. We had to make progress within weeks, even less than that, actually. And so we needed to keep it very simple. So keep those tools simple and you will get a big win and big impacts. Team engagement. When you show them the data and you do follow-up, the teams will lean in and work will get accomplished. You just can't let it go and hope that it's going to happen all on its own organically. Rarely does that happen. So make sure you're following up and giving them the data. And last, you can absolutely scale this approach, but just remember, keep it simple, keep it repeatable, use those FinOps principles. And with that, Bill and I really appreciate you being here. Thank you for taking your late afternoon with us. And I think we have a few minutes for questions.
Sure, we have time for one question.
Oh, thank you. Quickly, what kind of skills do you have on your team? You know, when I hear all the different SaaS providers, how you could get the feeds from there, trying to get them into your heat map and how all these nice summaries, how is your team? What skills, what kind of structure?
All right, good question. Well, we're really fortunate in this particular case that the principal engineer on the team was a strong developer and wrote a script. It wasn't a complicated piece of software. It was just a simple script to put that into that Google Sheet to create that heat map. In terms of other skills, it's project management, and then we're working with engineering teams on their monitoring usage and things like that, and see what they can do to trim that back. Not sure I answered that question specifically, but I mean, we've had some, software development in there. We had some project management in there, just, and the follow-up that follows with that. I'm not sure that helps.
I was going to say, so honestly, talk to your vendor, talk to the contractor, and ask for them to give you the data. If you have basic Excel skills that you can bring in and analyze the data, or use chat or some other AI, that could also give you the information. The key is you don't have to be technical. I'm not technical in the case of the developers, neither is the project manager, but we're still able to help and participate in this. So ask the vendor, especially with SaaS, to help you.
Mm-hmm. All right, so quickly, I mean, there's so much to learn from what you said, but one other thing that I heard very uniquely, you talk about SaaS policies. So that must have been very difficult to drive a SaaS policy across the organization. How did you do
that? Use it or lose it?
Yeah.
So we had been talking about it for a while. And it was one of those where we talked to some of the primary users, but the owner was our IT manager and her team that did it. And so we implemented it. We didn't ask for permission across the board. We knew just for that single one what we needed to do. And we told people that this was happening, right? So we sent out the email and the Slack saying, yes, we're going to implement use it or lose it. And then from that point, growing that, we did the same thing. If you had a license for each one of those SaaS providers that we looked at towards budgeting season, you got an email asking all the questions, and often it was in a form where you'd fill it out. And if you didn't use it, you would lose it. And that was very clear in the email and in the Slack that this was the new policy. So we weren't asking for everyone to provide input. It was the IT group that was managing this. They were ultimately responsible. They ultimately had the decision. And of course, we had the blessing of our CTO. Always important too.
All right. Thank you so much, Becky and Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, producer Andrew here. Thank you so much for watching and for your support. For more FinOps X 2025 content, go check out our YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, and leave comments and questions for all of our wonderful speakers. We appreciate your support.